On July 4th, 2024, a few months back, as we're all celebrating Independence Day, some friends decide to go out on Black Creek tubing. The individual who kind of led the show was a guy named Joe King. Joe King had a brand new boat, decided to get a brand new tube, attach it to his brand new boat, and go out on Black Creek. Then what you'll see, and we've provided some video and we'll show it, is what looks like fun turns into horror real quick. Victoria lost her best friend, Alina. Alina was like family to Victoria. You know, as a person who wasn't born to this country, it's not as easy to find good friends and people who are loyal and like family. And Alina was that to Victoria. And so she not only has to deal with her own injuries and losses, that of her daughter, who we're referring to as ER for her own privacy, and the loss of her friend, Alina, who's depicted here. And, you know, the lawyers who handle these cases are aware of the domino effect of what happens, but people aren't. And she had a job at a law firm, which she lost. She's had, you know, a series of injuries and medical bills and deductibles, and can't have surgery unless you have upfront money. And she is a victim of not just what happened on July 4th, 2024, but the victimization of the justice system, and, you know, an investigation that never really was fully completed by FWC. Mr. King was drinking that day. Mr. King was the one ultimately responsible for the safe operation of his boat. Mr. King was responsible for the people that he was towing behind his boat. And, you know, the one thing that Victoria and I share in this matter is the need, as we approach spring, as we approach boating season back again in Florida, that one, people do it safely, and two, people really consider you know, where they're operating inner tubes. You know, clearly you can, you know, even a novice boater can tell that the speeds and the danger with which Mr. King was traveling was too intense, and it caused that tube to flip up and fatally kill Alina and mortally wound Victoria while her own daughter filmed the footage. Anything you want to add, Victoria?
I want to add that for people to pay more attention when they're on the word, because I experienced that from the first hand, how it can be just life destroying, not just for me, for her, and the kids got a lot of, they just orphans now. So this is a big problem what we have here in Florida. There should be some restrictions, some sign on Black Creek that it's not allowed to be. I think that's big.
Billy, anything?
Yeah, this is just something that never should, never can happen, especially in that area. The video of this incident shows something that any boater, any operator of a boat with any knowledge and reasonable understanding of how to operate a boat with a tube being pulled behind it, there's just not any explanation for it. And so that's kind of what we want to look into.
And the video is 39 seconds long. Again, we've provided it. But it's those last few seconds, right? It's when the speed and the conditions of the waterway, along with adjacent trees, just proved too dangerous. And, you know, some people might not think about that. And certainly we hope people learn from Victoria's story, and that this saves lives, this saves injuries, because, you know, this is one of those things that's preventable. Questions?
I saw the video and what was provided, and I'm just wondering, how extensive were your injuries?
I had my pelvis crushed. I to go for the surgery. And besides that, it's emotional, constant pain. Going through that, losing jobs, it's very difficult for me. And in the same time, losing my friend who was more than a friend for me. As I said, as Joe mentioned, we, as immigrants, it's really hard. And not of us has this privilege to have family here. For me and Elena, we were alone. We didn't have any parents here, no one. So this is how you support each other. So it's not just losing a friend, it's losing a huge support.
And when you were on the tube, was it like your first time tubing?
No, I was tubing before, I think that's the second time.
And so I take it that when you were on there, you were under the assumption that this was all normal and that the boater was operating properly?
I think, you know, on a tube, you trust the one who is driving the boat, right? Like, I shouldn't be thinking where we're going. So honestly, we were just, you know, having fun with my friends. We were laughing. I didn't even realize that we were in a creek in such a narrow, you know, creek part. And it's been so fast, like we were laughing, and next second, I'm hitting the tree, so I passed out.
So you both hit the tree together?
What I remember, we were on the tube laughing, and after that it's black, and next thing what I remember, I'm flying in the air and hitting the tree with my side. That's how I broke my hip. And turning around, I saw her. She was pretty far from me. That was a big concern for me. How come she's not next to me? And she was standing in a car with, her arm was completely broken, and I crawled to her, you know, through the water with my injury, and I tried to help her because she started passing out. It was like, I couldn't understand what happened. It just happened so fast, and we didn't expect that, you know.
Can you talk about your friend, like what you missed the most about her and how long you guys knew each other?
I think the biggest what united us, we were both widowed, and that was a huge support. We were supporting each other, and we were pretty new widows. And when you're young, you have kids, you have job, it's really hard to carry. So that was our biggest support to each other and understanding. I think that's what united us together.
And that's what you missed most?
I missed the most. Now I'm grieving for my friend.
I know during that incident, your daughter was also there for that. We're almost at a year since this happened. How is your daughter doing?
She wasn't doing fine. She was in a hospital twice because she having a bad breakdown. She was in security with seeing her mom not having job and, you know, going to doctors all the time, you know. I got sepsis, so it's not just an injury. You know, I almost died from the sepsis, and she saw that, and here just me and her in US. So she was basically by herself while I was in hospital with my friends. You know, it's hard for her. I couldn't provide her comfort because that was big stress for her too. Because I was on the age between life and death, and on top it's grief, my child suffering, bills. It's not just an accident. As Joe mentioned, it's domino effect. It's just falling and falling and falling.
The boating season, the 2025 boating season kicks off in a few months, specifically in May. And I know you kind of touched on this, but if you can, just talk about the importance of boaters hearing about your story and learning from your story.
I think you need to be really cautious before you go on a war in the first place. Really too. I think anywhere you go, and especially in those areas. So I just want for people to be aware.
I know the gentleman that was driving that boat, Joe King, have you received an apology or anything from him since everything happened last year?
After the accident, he was pressing me not to file charges, and there were no support, nothing from him, not to my side, not to Yelena's family side.
Is the lawsuit mainly based on, I guess, recklessness? Is that what it's based on?
Yeah, justice is spelled one way, it's defined many different ways. I've said that expression probably as much as I've said any expression other than, I love you to my kids. Anyway, and, certainly a civil suit for negligence is all we have to prove here. And you not only have her direct injuries, but you've got the impact to the minor child as well. And that's where we started. This is probably the shortest complaint one of the shorter complaints I have in my office. And it's simple and to the point. But there's also criminal justice. And, here, while some could say Victoria was lucky, I'm not of that ilk. I don't think the trauma she's had is luck or fortuitous whatsoever. There's a death, there's a homicide here. And although we don't represent that family, it's something that needs to be taken tremendously seriously, because this is a homicide case. It's also going to be potentially a wrongful death case.
Is this still under investigation for possible criminal charges?
That's our understanding, but Eric, it's been since July. We're August, September, October, November, December, January, February, moving into March. That's 8 fingers I just held up.
And this would be the FWC that would be the lead investigator.
Correct. And I know there were points during their investigation, for instance, they wanted to speak to ER, EN, and she was in the hospital. And we're here 24 hours a day to help with any investigation, but the video speaks for itself. You can't just operate a boat. You couldn't do that in a car, right? If this was a homicide traffic fatality in an automobile and somebody was speeding and acting recklessly and hit somebody, there would be quicker consequences. We see it all the time.
Now, based on the video, you guys looking at this, because I know that in the video you saw how you could see the tube getting closer and closer and closer to the shoreline. Is that where you're saying, or you're alleging that that's where he probably should have slowed the boat down to try to move away from that?
Billy boats more than I do, but I from my standpoint, and then Billy can go, it's all of the above. It's speed, it's knowing the water conditions, it's failure to adjust, Billy.
And it's knowing when you can zig and zag and when you can't. It's kind of as simple as that. The bigger issue here too is having a requisite spotter on the back of the boat. You've got the person driving the boat that's going to be looking forward. It's really important to always have somebody on the back of the boat who's going to be checking to make sure that the tube's in the right spot or that it can fit into the right spot. I think that's what it comes down to.
Who knows what they're doing, who's not just along for the ride watching their mom, By no means are we going to allow them to throw, her daughter under the bus more than she's already experienced. This is not that young lady's fault. It comes with owning a boat, it comes with deciding to do this. Having fun brings responsibility.
And with the boating season coming up, from a legal standpoint, I know we're talking about her story being an example of boaters being more responsible, but I guess from a legal standpoint, you're looking at this as, okay, the boating season is coming up. These type of lawsuits are what you can face if you go out and do what this man has alleged to have done.
Correct, and you need to be adequately insured, or we're going to be coming after personal assets as well. And it's there are no winners here. We tried to resolve this with Mr. King and his agents, and got ignored to the point we decided to go ahead and file suit. We were almost at a year, and at some point, and this is the thing, regardless of how somebody gets injured, being a victim, whether a car crash or a plane crash or a shooting or whatever, zaps resources, and you lose your job. There's a GoFundMe here, but it'll never support her better than her job did, better than her health did. And so it is a notice. If you don't want me or Mr. Coker or Mr. Paget or Mr. Farrer or Mr. Morgan or any of the other lawyers in this town coming after you for unsafe boating, then boat safely, drive safely, be kind to one another.
And I just have one last question just for you. I know you suffer physically and I know emotionally, but I take it this has also had, because of losing your job, the inability to work because of your injuries. I'm assuming this has also hit you pretty bad financially?
It is. I was fired from the law firm I was working while I was badly injured. I was still in a wheelchair, so that was devastating when that the bill's gonna start piling up. So after that, I cannot perform anymore at the job I held because in accounting you need to sit for almost 8 hours straight. With my injury, I cannot sit more than 30 minutes. So besides mentally, you need to be really sharp to perform. And with me, with everything what's happening still going on, that's just impossible to do. So that makes on me very difficult to find another job, find another qualification, because what I did before, it's gonna be really hard for me to pursue it out.
Is there anything else, Victoria, or you two that you want to add that we did not ask you? Anything at all?
Just to say that Mr. King recklessness cost my friend life. The other lives destroyed and brought so much difficulties. It's injured me, and those injuries gonna echo me till the rest of my life. That's what I was told by doctors. The pain would be with me. My mental health with my child. This is a lot. This is very big price for recklessness. So I just want people to be more aware about what they're doing and conditions they're doing in.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you.
You heard it, son.